Welcome back to our last session of the day. For those of you who have not been with us until now, this is the Global Electrification Forum. Lawrence Jones, Senior Vice President. Our last session was a leadership dialogue where we heard a lot about customers. We heard a lot about working with customers. Both our speakers at the time were Greg Jackson and Maria Pope, and they both talked about the importance of customers. So our last panel today is going to be on the subject of increasing customer confidence through co-innovation. When we designed the Jeff, one of our key focus was to cover as many themes, but we made it clear that we had to focus on customers. And so you will hear throughout this week, almost every panel will come back to the importance of customer and the role of customers as we go forward with this energy transition. The panel is going to be moderated by Doug Aaron. Doug is the Executive Director of Strategic Public-Private Partnerships at NREL. He'll be joined by Mr. Riki Kojima. He's Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer of TEPCO Holdings in Japan. Drew Murphy, he's the CEO of Trio of the United States. And Fridrik Larsen, or Dr. Fridrik Larsen, he's the CEO of Larsen Energy Branding, joining us all the way from Iceland. Doug, please welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence. Thanks, everyone. Nice to see many old friends, and look forward to chatting this conversation with a great set of panelists, and following on that last conversation that was quite explosive in terms of thinking about customer engagement and innovation with the customer side. So why don't we do a quick round of just brief intros of the company and what it does, and then we're going to dive straight in. So Drew, do you want to kick us off?
Great, thanks. Great to be here. So my name is Drew Murphy. I'm the CEO of what's now called Trio, formerly known as Edison Energy. We're started by Edison International about 8 years ago as a startup inside the company, and have recently expanded into Europe in a big way in the last year and a half. And due to some trademark and other naming issues, when we did that, we rebranded to Trio. But we are still a global energy and sustainability advisory and implementation firm. We focus on serving some of the largest companies in the world and helping them with their energy and sustainability strategies, planning, and implementation efforts.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, my name is Fridrik Larsen. Well, actually, I speak for a concept, maybe more than for a company, and that's branding. How many of you have seen Forrest Gump, the movie? And remember the shrimp guy? I'm that guy, but with branding. Everything is about branding. So that's my whole focus on the way I look at things. And I hear so many interesting conversations here about complexity of things. So I'll try to keep my head clear. Where does branding fit into this? How do we do that? So I'm a professor of marketing at the University of Iceland. I host Charge, the only energy branding conference on the planet. It's in Houston next month, and it's been in Europe for the past 3 years. That's where I met this gentleman for the first time. He didn't believe in branding then, but now he does. And I also work for energy companies around, and I've created a health index for brands, basically. So instead of taking your blood pressure, you have to check how healthy your brand is on the outside, with your clients, and also on the inside with your employees. If there is a mismatch, you're losing money, and we don't want that. That's me.
Great, thank you. And Riki, if I may.
Yes, this is Riki Kojima from Tokyo Electric. I'm Executive Vice President and the Chief Innovation Officer. I'm the only one who wears a nice tie on the stage today. Thank you. TEPCO is probably, that the large utility in Japan. We are supplying 1/3 of total energy demand, including Tokyo metropolitan area. I think the sheer size of the company is so large. And the company, now I'm sitting at the holding level. Under holding, we have 4 different segments. One is the generation, distribution, grid distribution, retail, and renewable. So I'm in charge of basically the growth of the whole company, including a new innovation, but also restructuring of the whole corporate structures. I think one thing I think you may know that the thing about the TEPCO is something about the Fukushima incident took place about 12 years ago already. That has been a huge, of course, damage to the society and also to the industry. And since this incident happened, the government took over more than 50% of shareholding. So our company is under very strong control in a way, and I think a regulatory discussion has been done this morning. But I think we are very much regulated in many ways. So I think that my job is how we can really create a small creativities under such environment, and that is a very challenging situation. But I think that's what maybe I like to learn something from other folks today. Thank you.
That's great. So let's dive in. So the guidance on this panel is to really think about communicating with customers and increasing confidence and co-innovating with them. I think we should parse just a little bit that says customers are not all equal. Clearly, you've got residential customers, commercial industrials, industrial customers as well, right? And they all behave slightly differently. And so I think the answers need to be segmented as we think about how do we communicate with them, or how do companies communicate with them, and how do companies create confidence in the transition and providing energy to meet their expectations. And I'll use very explicit language, to meet their expectations, because we heard in the last panel that residential customers have a different set of expectations, and some of them really want to engage. I think Greg pointed this great landscape out of customers that if you gave them the right product offering, they will self-learn. But that's not perhaps true of all customers, I'd say, right? So why don't we dive into a couple of examples and thinking about how do companies, or how do you recommend companies think about communicating with customers, and which customer, if you're going to use an example, and to help create that confidence that you're working with them, and can you co-innovate with them? So Lars, why don't you kick us off?
Sure.
And also, if you're going to use an example from a given country, give us the context for that example as well, because I'm going to dive into some country differences as well, because I think all country engagements are going to be quite different as well.
Yeah, so first of all, when I was first on a panel like this in an energy event, that was 9 years ago, and that was the first time after I had finished my PhD in energy branding, and I was offered to be on a panel, and the panel started, and I didn't understand anything. I didn't understand what they were saying. They just used such a complex language. I thought either my IQ is lower than I thought, or maybe the device over there, or my PhD is no good, or they're complex. The language is too complex, and that's the case. We are using a language that is too complex. We are doing that as an industry. And but to your question, so this is simply marketing 101, if you will. So you simply segment your clients because they have different needs and they want different things. So we have to understand them as segments, and you have to talk to them differently. Have products that appeal to different segments. Looking maybe 5 years back or 10 years back, you would think of them all as homogeneous, wanting the same. Just send them those electrons and they'll shut up maybe. But that's just not what we want. We have to understand them in a different way based on their needs, basically. And if you do that, so I mean, a good marketing person or branding person is not creative and thinking about things to say or being smart or like a madman approach. That's old school, basically. It's about really understanding your client, understanding what they want, and then fulfill those needs if you can. That's how you segment, and that's how you must think about it, basically.
Okay. And Riki, in Japan, you clearly have a wide variety of customers.
Yeah. Yes.
And how do you communicate similarly or differently to the different segments?
Well, we have, let's say, for example, TEPCO has 13 million customers across the board, from consumer to the middle, large, small and medium size to large scale clients. So I think it's various. I think it's a very different approach because when you talk about the consumer side, we basically meet face-to-face most of the time. And sometimes these days, usually more IT-related communications, but we can see the faces. The large corporations, of course it's face-to-face, but it's more strategic, more consultation type of approach. And it's a B2B business. So B2B to B2C, a different approach. I think that the needs from the clients are, of course, varied. But the things like carbon neutrality, decarbonization is the same across the board. But the more and more needs from a large corporation is really pure electricity supply. They need the demand for the electricity because of the large demand coming out of data centers, AI, same as other countries. But I think maybe last year they are looking for green energy, but now they're looking for some real energy. Maybe green part is a little bit drop a little bit, but they really need something that they really can work on. I think those are the things that the different needs in a different segment basis.
Are you saying that reliability or availability and reliability of supply, at least at this stage for your customers that are growing their demand, is trumping their desire for clean?
Well, clean energy, of course, if it comes with the green, that's a plus. But they need reliabilities and a sustainable supply is more, I think, more on top of the agenda these days.
And that comes through, as you say, for B2B, business to business.
Yeah.
It's direct communication with your customer.
Direct communications.
And how do you get that feedback from residential consumers?
Residential, sometimes we have a program, like a communication program we basically communicate with the clients based upon the price and the programs and internet basis sometimes these days. And some of the focus group available so that the people can go and talk about it. But I think majority of the case these days is more on the internet basis.
And do you offer creative retail tariffs like Greg talked about that Octopus does?
Well, that's a very different. I think it's a
different dynamic.
That's I think it's something that we really love to do it, but I think Japan as a society is more of a formal, the order, and it's not that frank relationship.
Right. Drew, from your perspective, working within Edison International, but also with multiple clients, are there standout communication approaches that you're seeing?
Yeah, well, obviously, I do think different customer segments have different tactics that you would use. What I would say is that I really agree with what's been said. That first of all, I do think that brand matters. It's important to actually think about what your brand is, even if you don't think about it. Inherently, your customers are thinking about your brand and what your brand promises, even if you don't always articulate it well yourself. Because when you don't deliver on that brand promise, they know it and they'll let you know that. But so just in terms of how we approach sort of customers generally, I would say the whole strategy that we've had for the last 8 years has really been around helping all of our customers navigate and be successful through this energy transition that we're all experiencing. We're really still in the early mid stages of that. I don't know how long it's going to go on, but this is an economy-wide transformation as we incorporate more and more renewables, more and more variable energy, more and more decarbonized solutions into the energy mix. That's creating huge complexity. To your point, huge questions for everybody, whether you're in the residential side, whether you're a consumer, or whether you're a business. The particular part of the business that I run now at Trio is focused on the large commercial and industrial customers. And we are very intentional that our communications and our whole approach is supposed to focus on meeting those customers wherever they are in that journey. And you have lots of different companies of all sizes and types. Some are very forward. ahead already. They've been thinking about clean energy and decarbonization for years. You've got folks like Amazon and Microsoft and Walmart and many others I could name. A number of those, all those clients that just named the big ones, they were all clients of ours about 6 years ago. We helped them when people were just trying to figure out, how do I sign up for PPA, a power purchase agreement as a renewable energy when I can't get it from my utility. That was what they've gotten very sophisticated now on doing that. What they need help. Am I off here?
Yeah, it seems to be off.
Yeah.
No. Excuse us 1 second online. I'll do a microphone switch there.
Great. Hopefully that's better?
Yeah.
Great. So as I said, we are trying to meet these customers where they are in their journey. So we have, these customers are now much further down the road, and we can help them with the next set of issues that they need to face in terms of how they decarbonize. We also now are working with companies that are maybe smaller or haven't had the pressures or the other reasons to go as fast, and now saying, I've got investors or regulators telling me I have to figure out how to meet carbon disclosure requirements. I've got to reduce my carbon and set goals. How do I do that? How do I not only set the goals, how do I then actually implement programs to actually reduce my carbon footprint and my energy usage over time? So they're at a different stage in the journey. But to your question, I think meeting customers where they are on that journey is really how we think about our customer segmentation and the approach to customers. That allows us to sort of hopefully meet our brand promise when we actually deliver.
But if I may, let me just peel the onion there for a second, because the words around this particular panel, increasing customer confidence, how important is that for their journey, but also your journey? And it sounds like you are engaging to give them confidence, but also co-innovating to move them along their journey. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So the confidence is hugely important. We spend a fair amount of time up front with customers, talking to them about what are their goals and helping them understand the options they have to try to meet those goals, and trying to help set realistic expectations around what each option can achieve, to your point. And then that's the innovation part, is not the same solution isn't going to work for everybody. So we actually try to make sure that we're fitting the solution to the particular customer need, their business, the nature of their customers. I'll give you an example right now. We are working with a number of industries, like the auto industry, on supply chain decarbonization, especially as more and more companies have net zero goals that incorporate scope 3 emissions. Going to their supply chains, all of the vendors in their supply chain, and saying, how do you reduce your energy usage, how to reduce your carbon footprint, is something that is really important. But none of these companies know how to do that, right? That's not their main business. And so we have been working on supply chain decarbonization programs with them that we actually co-innovate with them. Honda and GM are great examples. We're working with both of them jointly on programs that will help decarbonize sectors of their supply chain, because they buy from a lot of the same companies. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, where we work together with them to meet the things that they've identified they want to get done.
Great, thank you. Fridrik, let me turn to you at this stage. Drew, I think, described his dynamic with customers when there's a unique relationship. Mm-hmm. I think you're talking about customers that are in an IOU, an integrated operating utility service territory. Mm-hmm. You're guaranteed being their provider. Is that correct?
At the utility, we certainly are, but in the other work we do, this could be in any country across North America or Europe.
So this is where I want to get to, which is, how does this dynamic change in a retail competition environment, for example, and where does understanding your customer, working with their confidence, co-innovating with them, and frankly, branding your product work differently in that competitive environment?
Yeah. Great question. I think we throw around those words, business to business, business to consumer, but at the end of the day, it's business to human. We're always talking to people at the end of the day. So, okay, there is something in the layers between there. And what you work with big clients, and you take the time to talk to them, and you create the relationship based on trust, and you actually talk. So you don't have the luxury of this in a business to customer relationship, but you do create that confidence and that layer of trust through your brand. I mean, people tattoo Tesla on them, that on their arms or apple on their head. I mean, that's a true bond, and you create that with that same understanding of what they want, and you come to terms with them on where they are, basically. And you do that through, we can call it education, we can call it advertising, call it whatever you want to, but at the end of the day, we have to communicate what we are. We have to tell them what we are and how they should feel about us and why they should feel a certain way. And sometimes we are selling a social currency. They buy electricity from us because that makes them feel better. Or they get a magnet to put in the fridge because they are green. And then, but what is green? What is sustainable? What's corporate social responsibility? What is all those words? They don't really understand them. So we can't throw a word around those words that we think matters to us because the customer doesn't understand it the same way. There was this gentleman, he's left. He was at Davos last year. I was there 2022 speaking. And we took this index that I referred to, with this health measurement tool that I measured. It has 4 angles. One of them is ESG. So to understand how does ESG affect trust, this affect profitability. So we ran it against 15 biggest companies in the world just to understand how that would affect. And we saw, of course, it does affect. I mean, if you do put that into your brand, you will make money. You'll make less money than if you put it into something else, affect. So we'll have to decide what we want to do in the short term or think about the long term. But in Davos, I thought that amongst all the experts, they would understand those words and they would use them correctly, but they didn't even understand them. They had a different understanding of what is green, what is, all those things. So firstly, it's so complex to use all those words, and we can never expect the client to understand us the way we want to. So we have to find that link somehow to connect with them. And this, how many suppliers are in the States that can actually sell you energy? In the thousands. So how can you be different? You have to find a way to be different, a unique way to do this. Octopus has done it in a very unique way. And there are companies that have found their way to do this. But it's harder, with electricity, which is you can't touch it and you only interaction is the bill. It's much harder than if you can wear it. I'm wearing a jacket with a sign, I'm wearing shoes. You can't do that in energy. So it's harder, but you can do it.
Harder and do it, okay. So it's probably harder also in, I'll call it a regulated environment that doesn't have retail competition.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So, but if I may add to that also, because the brand does not only live between you and your customer, it also lives between you and your employees. So, I mean, I've been around, I've talked to a lot of people, and I don't need brand. They say, people have to buy from us, or we are B2B, we just talk to our clients. We don't need brand. All this is untrue, it's not true. Because one very, very important group that you want to reach out to is people that want to work for you. And you do that through a strong brand, whether it's a B2B or a regulated market or whatever, or a municipality. So you have to think about it holistically, basically.
Is that mixing brand and culture,
yes,
perhaps?
If you think about culture up there, then you have HR issues and your brand issues, and that's an ever-going circle. And you can use internal marketing and branding to affect, to a large extent, a lot of issues that have to do with employee satisfaction. Mm-hmm. And you can pay, well, there's a lot of studies that have been done around this, and you have 2 jobs. Someone is applying for a job A, which company, well-branded company, job B, less well-branded, and they'll take up to 18% lower salary just because they want to work with a good brand. So I ask you, should you spend money on branding? Obviously, those are clear facts.
Ricky, let's build off of that in Japan. I mean, TEPCO clearly has, you shared the Fukushima tragedy experience with us. There's a ongoing transition in China, energy transition, that is both got its dynamics with the nuclear fleet and also the government and I believe corporate desires for reaching low carbon goals. And yet also you've got increased demand and challenges. You went through, if I remember correctly, very serious energy efficiency measures post-Fukushima with a lot of success. And that was a customer confidence and engagement process. How has that changed over time? And how are you then I'll call it approaching branding and working with customers to keep their confidence or increase their confidence in being able to supply reliable, affordable, I presume low carbon, according to all of the goals set in Japan.
Yes, thank you. I think TEPCO has been around maybe more than 100 years. And the people knows company still there exists, and they have some certain expectation from us. You know, if we ask TEPCO, they provide you electricity without any sort of a stoppage, basically, no blackout, constant, good price, and a high quality electricity. That is the expectation. And since that when the incident happened, I think all the customer confidence went down to the bottom, really. Even though we are doing the same business every day, the majority of the people said, "Oh, well, we doubt about it. You know, are you really doing the right things?" So I think it took us maybe. I think that the people are still working on that. But my feeling is that I think that people are now start to take it as granted. Okay, now the TEPCO has done a great job, and now we allow you to do the same thing as before, even though we are doing the same thing as before. But it seems like they accept and come back to almost the same expectation they used to have. So I think what we have to do is to continue to do what we do. But doing the same thing is not the right thing to do. We have to improve what we have to do. And now we try to reach out to the client and the customers, from individual to the large clients, to see what really they want. I think that's just like we discussed it. I think a company like TEPCO is so large, so old. We didn't pay attention to the client's needs for a long, long time. So now, finally, we're trying to reach out to understand what they really need. But now they realize that people do not, for example, decarbonization, and the people want green energy, but we realize that the clients in Japan do not know what to do, how to do it. And because we did not reach out, and the people did not know, think about it. So I think that is a good opportunity for all of us, including us and the clients, so that maybe we can work together to achieve what we can do. And TEPCO has the carbon neutral design, TEPCO CN design. That is the name of the program that we go to the clients, and we came in from the day one to setting up all the strategy and the planning up to the execution of the CN. So I think that's how we developed.
You also shared with me earlier, and I'd love to have you share with the group, broader group, what you're doing with distributed energy as well. So you talked about helping customers install solar, for example. I would think most folks don't think of TEPCO as a enabler of distributed generation. So talk to us about that.
Well, of course, we are a large power generation company, but at the same time, we go to the clients and help the clients' needs for the carbon neutrality, CN, so that we set up, we are setting the products that is rooftop solar in the individual household, and we also sell and provide the battery system so that they can store their own the power. At the same time, we are developing with a car company so that we use EV as a sort of a battery system, mobile battery system, when something happens. So this is we try to help at the carbon neutral together with the resilience to the natural disaster.
I'm going to come back to you after I asked Drew a couple of questions on the employee side. So we'll get both sides of that equation again. So Drew, are there some novel ways that you have engaged customers in this confidence co-innovation process, or are you hearing of some outside of, I think Greg's example of, using an enormous platform and having individually targeted offerings?
I think we actually just mentioned it
part of the.
I'm not sure that
This
mic
not
people,
working?
is that one working, the hand mic? It's okay? All right, thank you.
So I think actually maybe it's part of it is realizing that as we move into this energy transition more and more, the distinction between sort of the utility side and the customer side of the meter, or whatever you want to think about it, is blurring more and more. And this has been something that at EIX and Edison we've been seeing for a number of years. But the truth is that we have to look at customers as actually part of the energy system, part of the grid. We did a whole strategy piece right before the pandemic, 2019, 2020, called Reimagining the Grid at EIX. And a lot of that was looking at what is the role of the grid going to be, and what's the role of the customer and the utility together in actually making the grid function resiliently, reliably, and deliver power when and where customers need it. Looking out towards the California goals of 2045 for net neutrality. But the point of that was we recast that whole question as not sort of utilities here, we just do this thing and customers do whatever they do and they sort of show up to us and we have to react to whatever it is. It was about trying to figure out how do we actually create a set of solutions together with them that give them what they need when they need it at the time. And some of those will be supplied by us. Some will be supplied by the customer. Some will be supplied by third parties. That's why I think what Greg and his company have been doing is very much on the forefront of that. So I think more innovation around realizing that customers, whether they're residential, whether they're small business or big business, are part of the actual system in a much more dynamic and interactive way. That is a big part of what we as a company have been thinking about, investing in, and trying to actually act on over the last 6-7 years.
That's great. So that sounds to me like it's a slightly different paradigm than delivering electricity and the customer's got confidence that you're delivering electricity that meets their needs. It's more about customer engagement and co-innovation, this latter part of it. Is that
where the
the right way to
confidence
think
comes
about
in,
it?
I think about it, is that they need to have confidence that the system more broadly, not just the utility on grid part of the system, but the system more broadly, which utilities have a huge role in, actually can meet their needs when they need it. Because look, we're basically saying, whatever study you look at or pathway you pick, electrification is going to be a much bigger part of our energy source going forward to meet climate change goals, and just because of where it's all heading. So if you're asking people to say, I'm putting my daily family, business, and commercial needs basically in the hands of the electric system, we've got to look at the system more broadly. So the confidence comes at having not just the grid working, not just the utility part of it, but the interaction between the various other pieces. So that's to me where confidence for customers comes from, is that they actually know they can get it where they need it, regardless of who's actually owning or operating that particular piece.
Yeah. Let's dive in, Fridrik, a little bit further on that. So the co-creation of solutions, I think particularly because I think almost everywhere we're seeing an increase in electricity demand, unprecedented in many locations around the world. This has tension with it, mostly temporally, sometimes spatially as well, i.e. customers want their electricity needs met when they want it, not at a utility pace, i.e. many years down the road after a long planning process, maybe a regulatory proceeding, et cetera, where they get approval to put in capital and to bear, et cetera. How does that tension actually translate, I guess, into a co-innovation opportunity? And can you take advantage of that a little bit, like Drew was saying, because there's all sorts of assets and all sorts of ways to work the system if you're in it together. Is that right?
Yeah, good question. So I'll answer it in much the same way as I answered the first one.
Okay.
So you will find a segment of people segmenting. So however many segments you have as a company, maybe 3, maybe 50, maybe 100, you will find a segment that is willing to work with you on this. And they'll cooperate to use less or use it at a better time, etc. But the bulk will not. They don't care. So how do you talk to them? So of course you'll talk to that segment, and they feel good about doing business with you and the rest of it, but most will not care. I mean, we are, as individuals, if we are forced to do something, we'll do it. And that's reflecting on the energy transition. We have to make people do stuff to change the world, basically. We have to regulate things. But if you add that layer of branding on top of it, and this communication, not talking down to them, but on their level and understanding, we will increase the adoption of those who will work with you, basically. So to make it shorter, one segment, all in, you know, they will do whatever you call hippies or whatever segment you will call this, the rest won't care. So you have to find a different way.
Let me probe two different pieces there, which I think are important. So there's a group that wants to engage, fantastic. There's a group that Greg described, which is give them an IT product and platform where they want to learn and engage. And then I think you described actually a third group, which is, I don't really care, just make sure it's on and it's cheap. Is there a way to engage with that group as well? So here I think of learning smart meters, smart devices, AI-enabled optimization, that's all invisible. Is that a way to address those that really don't care, per se?
Well, firstly, Octopus is doing a great job, like a fantastic job, but they didn't inherit anything. They had to take it all. So they fought for all the business, but they fought with British Gas, etc. So if you're British Gas or Scottish Power or some of those competitors, you want to create those sleepers. You want to make sure that they'll just sleep nicely, pay the bill, don't care too much. So you talk to them in that way, because those sleepers and those people, I mean, a wonderful segment. I mean, no worries, to just pay the bills. So you want to make sure that you have to neutralize the voices of the octopuses of the world, basically. So the answer is yes, there is a way, but not in all-out aggressive, look at me way, but create this element of trust and reliability and the nice person that comes to your room and fixes the boiler, etc. A very, very different tactic, but yes, you want to talk to them differently.
Confidence with the customer that they are getting their needs met as needed. Ricky, I want to come back and ask about the engagement and the with employees, because Fridrik talked about this kind of being a critical segment as well for you as a company. You're a company that's over 100 years old. You've gone through challenges, but yet now you're continuing to innovate. How is it going with employees in TEPCO?
Well, the employees, we have like a shy of 40,000 employees within the company, and including other related companies. We have I don't know how many we have, but I think it's a challenge, really. I think it's because of the employees are very smart, and they know what's going on within the company and outside of the world. So I think that the message I bring to them is very critically important. So I think communication within the company is probably, I think it is more important, or maybe as important as we do to the outside. And we carefully choose our word. And of course, we do not hide anything. We like to be open as much as we can. We basically communicate with the client, the employees, as openly as possible and as fast as possible, so that we provide the information that we have. But the helping the engagement is really still a challenging situation, so that we try to bring them into some of the projects and give them a sort of early success, even small success, so that I think all the managers, the middle managers, we are encouraging them to bring all the employees within to their sort of even small projects, so that they can make some success. I think it takes time, and the people from different backgrounds, different educational background, also different regional backgrounds, and try to bring together. That's something that we want to get the message across within a very simple and the same language and very, how do I say that, fast delivery of the information.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to give each of you 30 seconds, but I see that we are virtually out of time. Take 30 seconds, you sure? Just to, something maybe we haven't covered or one key thing that you would like to wrap up and summarize from your perspective regarding engaging with customers, increasing their confidence and innovating with them. A quick 30 seconds each.
Okay, I'll start. I guess I'll just go back to what we sort of started with, which is I think it is really important to be clear and focused about what it is you're telling customers you can do for them and making sure that you're listening to what they need and presenting how you can solve that really clearly. So reducing complexity to clarity is probably the most important thing when you're engaging with customers.
And meeting them on their journey.
And meeting them on their journey, correct.
Great.
I think I'd say charts, my energy branding event, we've been selecting the best energy brands since 2016. And my learnings from those awards is those companies that usually win and do the best, they are transparent and they are open and unafraid to show the human side. So because we want to engage with humans, but traditionally the energy companies maybe are closed off and they're doing the thing, but transparent and open and human. That's what I would say.
Great. And Ricky?
Yeah, focus on the infrastructure needs. We provide stable and affordable electricity day by day.
Great. I would just say, just reflecting on this panel and the panel last year and others, is that the conversation's gone from treating customers as meters, frankly, to actually humans, and really understanding where they're at in their journey and working forward, and including your employees as well. So join me in thanking the panel, and thank you.
So we've come to the end of our first day at the Jeff. To wrap up, I will just say two things. First,